3.
Hi everyone, this is Merge Conflict, the studio that came from UT, and they're all wonderful UT and ex-UT students. And so give the floor to them, they're going to talk about their experience in the studio. So please give it up for Merge Conflict.
Oh my gosh, okay, so thanks y'all. Thank you here. GC Squared is a great event, so we're incredibly grateful to be a part of it. I know we've got some like ex-EGADS offices on the team, so they've also been a part of the GDC Squared shenanigans for a bit. But I think we're just gonna jump straight into it. We're gonna give a quick overview of our team, who we are, and then we'll do a section for Q&A. Because we want to hear what your questions are. And so, as Diego mentioned, hello, we are Merge Conflict, and we're an indie game studio focused on centering marginalized perspectives and environmental awareness. And we're just gonna jump straight into it. I'm gonna actually kick it off to Karina. Let's start far and
Okay. Hello, I'm Karina.
I don't think it's on.
Is it if it's green?
Hello.
Yeah.
It's blue.
Here.
Hello. I'm Karina. I'm the art director at Merge Conflict. I'm a 5th year here at UT. I'm studying AET, Studio Art, and Plan 2. I used to be an EGADS officer starting from my 2nd year here towards just until last one. And I was very involved in like running game jams, like running workshops, socials, and things like that. So if y'all are here, you're in the right space for like being involved in the game development community. I don't know what else should I introduce myself?
I think that's pretty good.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Joseph. I'm the kind of writer and narrative director for Merge Conflict. I was also an EGADS officer. I was the industry officer for 2 years, so I got to organize 2 GDC squares, which was cool. Definitely a really good org to be a part of, to kind of get in touch with people who are either entering or are already in the industry, and they have a lot of knowledge to share to you. I'm also in my 5th and final year. I managed to fit it into 5, even though I only have 1 major. And I think that's all.
Hi, I'm Ethan. I'm the design director currently at Merge Conflict. No longer a UT student, graduated last year. I was not an EGADS officer, but I did bring my winning personality. That's pretty much all I have to say for now. So, did you get the mic figured out? Or?
Yeah. Hello, my name is Connor. I am also was a previous EGADS officer. Graduated from UT this past spring. I was the community and socials director for 2 years. Before that, junior officer. I'm the gameplay design lead, whatever. They're all made up titles.
Hi, I'm Will. I'm the audio director at Merge Conflict. Kind of the one sound person, so I get that title. As Connor said, it's all made up anyway. But I graduated UT last semester. It took 5.5 years for the 1 major, but we got it done, and that's how it goes. It was just kind of how it is. I wasn't a EGADS officer or anything like that. I showed up for the kickoffs, and that was about it.
Good org though.
Yeah, great org.
Hey y'all, my name is Melody Geiger. I am the producer here at Merge Conflict. Not an EGADS officer also, but I am a double major in arts and entertainment technologies and Spanish. And I've also gone through the Text Immersive coursework here at UT, which is a really cool place to learn about just like new and emergent technologies. Actually, I need to stand up to the slide, but I've done a bit of production work just in different backgrounds in like film, immersive, not theater, but immersive productions, and then also game dev. Yeah. Also, I want to shout out Sprout, who's like our kind of official, unofficial mascot. So kind of the agenda plan here is just to tell y'all about our story and how we got from, capsule art with legs, initial first project that we built together all the way to actually forming the studio. It's been quite a journey. We started fall 22 semester. So here we are now. And I'm gonna throw this to.
Yeah, so this kind of all started in our AET senior design project of the fall of 2022. And we were like, hey, we want to make a game. I really wanted to make a game in the style of a genre called solar punk, which is basically a positive outlook at the future, when technology and nature are working in harmony, and we've solved or solving climate change, right? And so I kind of just messaged my friends hey, I need this team. Let's take this class with me. And so that kind of worked out. Yeah. So I don't know what else to say.
I think another thing with Refresh was what we wanted to build with it. So you see the pillars in the corner. It was just we knew we wanted to have the environmental awareness, which is the solar punk aspect that Connor brought. And then Joseph can probably speak to the narrative aspect.
Yeah, like Connor said, it's more positive outlook, trying to show community action and organization. That it's not one person no one person's going to come in and solve climate change, obviously. And it's really about forming those bonds in a community in order to work together towards this goal. Where in the game, it's not everything is perfect. There's this, it starts off with this storm that kind of comes through and tears up the town, and through your actions as a player and kind of the interactions with the townspeople, you get to rebuild your community.
I will say though, our first semester, we were not thinking about these things at all. We were we want to make a game that is fun and cool. And that was about it. All these things just kind of came naturally as we were working on it. And it just became a really nice avenue for us to sort of talk about the things that interest us and that we care about in a media that we have fun making,
Yeah, no, I think that's definitely true for the most part. I think the one thing that we did start out with it was making it kind of a relaxing platformer game and stuff, which is one of the pillars up there. We were we want it to be solar punk, and we want it to be a really relaxing, cozy platformer thing. And I think that's what panned out. But like Karina said, a lot of the other stuff, the community action sort of thing, event definitely developed as it went and stuff.
To add on to that, I think that the reason it worked out so well is because we had all worked together on different games before in some kind of capacity. So we had this background of hey, worked with JoJo on a bunch of game jams, and me and Ethan and Melody we're in level design together. So it wasn't just kind of hey, let's make this big ambitious project in the senior design. It was we had built ourselves up as developers, and this was kind of our first true test of making a larger title.
And that's something that I think EGEDS does a really good job with, of having those game jams in the fall, is you can do jams with people you've never worked with together before. Sure, I worked with Karina on Refresh, but the first project we actually did together was Texas Game Jam that fall, before we actually got into development on Refresh. And so find those bonds with people through things here like EGADS, the classes you're taking, whether you're CS or AAT or RTF or anything like that, and make those friendships and those bonds with other developers so you can make a really cool kick-ass project for your senior capstone class. And that's what will really set you up for the future.
Yeah, and I also do, I want to throw back to Crane's point. When we were at this stage, we were not thinking about long term. We got a capsule with legs, and when he would jump, his arms would come out of his body. But yeah, so I think that's a good summary of where we started together as a team. And then I think something that, in progress of developing the game, we had this kind of pipe dream idea of back in our first semester of development. It's what if we could showcase this at GDC because one of our professors, Tyler Coleman, who no longer teaches here at UT, he had mentioned that to us, and it was kind of this like dream we all had, but we didn't really think it could happen until like the second semester.
Yeah, kind of how that all worked out was Tyler was talking to me at have you guys been to Game Dev Beer Night? Anyone here? It's like you can be under 21 and go. It's very much a big event run mostly by John Henderson over there. It's very, very good to get plugged into the Austin game dev scene. But that's where Tyler told me about GDC's Play, which is the event we showcased through at the GDC Expo floor. And I just kind of cold emailed GDC and was like, hey, we're a bunch of students that don't know what we're doing. How can we get our game on the expo floor? And it was a lot of effort. Like, I'm not going to kid you guys. It was a lot of work that we put in to make that happen. But we went through the College of Fine Arts, AET. We got funding from the school to be the first team that UT has sent to show a project there. UT's helped fund other students to go, and it's really awesome if you're able to go and just be part of GDC. But being able to go and show your work there to the biggest game dev industry event that's there. We're getting people from like art directors at Ubisoft looking at our game to Alchemy Labs here in town saw us and was like, whoa, this is from UT, like just the school that has a game dev program. Like they're here at GDC. And it was a very defining experience for us as students.
I just want to preface for people who aren't super familiar with the game dev scene or are very new to it. GDC is the Game Developers Conference that happens in San Francisco in March every year. And it's like the biggest game development conference in the world, basically. That's where everybody goes. Like March is like the big game dev month.
March is kind of crazy. It's got South by, GDC, and PAX, which I don't know if we thought that was a good idea for game dev, but
And DICE. And DICE. That's February. Wait, that's yeah, that just happened.
But yeah, so also another thing is like not only did we get support from the school, but like a lot of like some of y'all even sitting in the audience like helped us fundraise by buying our shirts like and our merch. So first of all, thank you to the people who've done that. Like that was
You can still buy them, by the way. And posters.
That was a huge thing, like a huge part that helped us, pay for our hotel. So there's an element of like bootstrapping and also just being very ambitious and creating a plan to achieve those ambitions and scoping them accordingly, I feel like. And then that's just a picture of us at the conference. And then I'm gonna kind of skip by GDC because there's a lot to talk about there. And so if anyone has like questions about that, definitely ask us in the Q&A. But I think one of the big results of the biggest result of GDC was that we got found by some people at Unity from the UK, and they saw our game and like kept bringing their other friends to be like, check out this game, y'all, this is sick, which is crazy. Like we had no idea that would happen. And so a result of GDC was we maintained those connections with those people from Unity, and they eventually ended up inviting us to develop Writing, which is a conference in the UK, showcase there, which like wicked cool because it's international. Like we definitely back in our first semester did not think that would happen. But I think it was a result of just again, like with those ambitions and making a plan to get there and also maintaining professional industry connections. I think that was a huge part of getting us there. And because of develop writing, I'm gonna toss this to Will. But yeah, because of develop writing, we like formed the studio from there.
Yeah, basically we were kind of approached by people, and Melly can speak more on this. We're like, hey, we like your game. Can we port it to Switch? And we're like, that sounds awesome. Yeah,
Yeah,
sure.
exclusive
But
announcement, by the way.
we have no money. And they're, we've worked with them, and we basically set up like a rev share. Anyways, without getting into that, we were like, okay, if we get on Switch, we need a company. And this is something we had talked about, and we are like, nah, we're not gonna like make a company or anything. Like that'd be crazy. But I think that so it's like this butterfly effect of going to GDC and meeting the Unity people, and then meeting people at the Unity event or at Develop Brighton who want to work with us. Is like now we have a studio. And I think right after this time, when we were kind of saying like, oh shit, we need to like form a studio so we can work with these people, we're like, you know, would be fun if we like made another game just for funsies. So that also kind of just happened.
And like one thing about this other game, I don't know how many of you played it out there, the Project Petra. It's where we have a prototype out there that you guys can play. But we were sitting around in this room after the EGADS kickoff in the fall, and we were humming and hawing all about like, oh, we have this game. What do we want to do? Do we make like this game in Unity of we know that engine, we can make a really cool thing? Or we're still a bunch of students, only a couple of us had graduated at the time. Or like, should we do it in Unreal, an engine we don't have experience with, and try and make this like more portfolio piece? And shout out John Henderson again. We were talking to him about it. He said, make a game that you can sell. And that was the advice that really also helped kickstart like Merge Conflict as a studio of, hey, let's make this new game and try and get people interested in it and make a product to sell.
Yeah, I definitely, big thanks to John. If you haven't talked to John already or know who John is, you should. But
Hi, John.
I give advice away for free. I'm a schmuck.
love that.
And his advice, like, it sounds like kind of basic, but at the time we were like, oh, we're just like kind of working on this thing, and you know, it's for fun. Like, we don't know what's gonna happen. Like, we don't have a plan. He's like, just sell it for money, and we're like, you know, that's very obvious now, but we had, I guess, not like confidence in ourselves or something.
Yeah.
But yeah.
And I think like another funny point was like, JoJo's been saying, like, JoJo's been in retail pretty much since the beginning. It's like, guys, what if we just formed the studio? And we were all like, nah. And then here we are. I don't know. Joe, did you want to say anything about that?
Yeah, there's like 4 writing positions in the industry. And so I had to try and convince everyone to make a studio so that I didn't have to look for a job.
As it turns out, everything that happened in the past year, I was Nostradamus on everything is going to explode. Sorry, tell everyone. Forming your own studio and making something that will sell, you may as well do it now.
And I think that's like, that also industry advice is like, it's never a good time to go indie. We don't have, you know, a house mortgage. We don't have like those obligations yet. We're fortunate that like some of us are still supported by our parents in like this kind of flex stage. So, I mean, that's another reason, right? Like some people don't have that support and advice. So it's important to call that out that we do have that privilege of being able to, you know, pursue our dreams in this form and fashion. And it's not easy, but
we're young and dumb, and we can pull these all-nighters and crazy amount of work hours because we do have that in our lives right now that we can make it happen. You're not going to be able to do that when you're in your 30s and your 40s, most likely. So take advantage of being young while you still can.
Also, we can keep track of our parents' health insurance.
Yeah. So your parents' health insurance, stay on that as long as you can. You don't have to worry about that stuff. So we're able to invest in this brand new startup because we do have that safety net.
Yeah. It's very, very fortunate. Also, I think we saw traction. One thing I didn't point out, but it's on the slide. We did see like traction in other, you know, applying to festivals, applying to, you know, things that could potentially elevate our game and like see how it actually stacks up against just other student games in the industry. So I think that was another like positive and encouraging factor for us to just keep going with what we were doing. And so this is a little bit more on the development side of, you know, got refreshed, we're continuing stuff with that, and then we also got this new project, which, hey, you can play out there in the atrium and potentially give us feedback if you want. is that development side, but there's also the component that I think we were all least prepared for, because we are game developers out of AET and not business majors, or any entrepreneurship, background. And so I think one of the biggest reasons we were also able to start the studio was that we had industry mentors and advisors and people who we could reach out to and be like, how did taxes work? How do we do some of these, really key and crucial biz dev things that we didn't really get a chance to explore in our program?
That's one really cool thing about being here at UT. Like, I know most of us here are probably CS or fine arts majors. Are there anyone in the audience that's not in either of those two schools? Okay, we got 2 hands. Cool. Yeah, for 3. Okay, cool. So we as UT students meme on McCombs a lot. Yeah. It's a really good business school. Unironically, it is a good business school and has a lot of really cool resources that they can provide to young startups. We got funding through pitching at McCombs. The Harkey Institute, you can just schedule office hours with the CFO of Farbridge because he has office hours there, or lawyers to ask about startups. And anything like that, you have access to these resources right now. You don't have access to them when you graduate.
I think something that's really beneficial about something that's really beneficial about being at UT is even if you are games focused, UT has so many resources as being a university. You can have classes with people who are in economics or who are in health studies or whatever. UT has a lot of resources. Also, just being state funded, there's a lot of avenues for you to find resources here for any goal that you have. So look for them because you don't have to be sequestered in your school.
Another resource that's if you're in AT and fine arts, the Kendra Scott Center has support for women in entrepreneurship or even just in creative exploration avenues, and that's something that we're also taking advantage of while we are here at UT and have that ability to go and ask any question, whether it's related to entrepreneurship, finance, production planning. There's a lot that we need advice and help on, and we're really fortunate to have those mentors. And then the other half of this is partnerships. So I think this is more a result of going to those conferences and getting access to professionals in the industry who are, not necessarily based here in Austin. So both of these, well, the one on the left is our partner co-development partner that we are helping to refresh the switch to. And then this other one, Bare Knuckle, is a consulting person that we found, and they live in the Netherlands. And it's kind of crazy, just what going to these, how global this industry is and how small and tiny and connected all of it is, really. But they're also super crucial to helping us maintain ourselves as a studio. And then next is the business side. So there's a lot more paperwork. You thought the game design documents is paperwork? No. I mean, yes, but there's more. When you have a company and a studio, the financial planning of this is something I think that's really important and crucial. It's been on all of our minds, right? Because ultimately this is a business, even though it's a small business. We want to figure out how to live sustainably. And so, running projections on how much can we sell the game for, how much can we pay ourselves, how much do taxes actually cost, or a CPA for more taxes. Taxes are scary, y'all. Anyway, also the time element, right? How long are we dedicated to working on this, realistically speaking? what are the commitments that not only do we have, but people that we're now working with on this new title, because there's not just the 6 of us now, we're working with some other friends. And even on Refresh, we were working with a few other people. Shout out to Grant and Katie for here in the audience. Yeah, did I miss anything?
Yeah, the one thing I want to add to that, especially for like the business development side of it, is it's something I hope you're hearing in your classes. I know it's something we heard in our classes. It's not what you know. Like what you know is important, but it's not what you know. It's who you know. And that really, really is important because you don't know when you need help on something until you need it. And if you have that support network to reach out and ask questions, or even if it's not something that you're trying to work on a project for, like if you want a job, like you almost never get a job unless you have a reference from the inside. Like it's who you know in this industry.
Yeah, and I will say like you won't ever get a job if you don't know people, but I think it does really help and it is a big factor. I think I feel like some of us have gotten our jobs just like through recommendations. So
Was that you won't never get a job if you don't know people, or you won't ever?
you can get a job,
but it's very hard. Yeah.
Yeah. Point is, shout out to Melody because I feel like she also just knows everyone, and I'm sure there are like hundreds of just ghosted LinkedIn DMs that she sent, but she's sending them, and that's how we know the people we know and how we've gotten the help so far. But definitely starts like in a place like here and the people in this room.
Yeah, and Austin truly does have a really, really good game dev scene. I mean, we have studios from indie all the way to AAA, and there are several events that you can, like anyone can attend. Shout out to John Henderson. Shout out to ATX Game Makers as well. Their calendar will list out everything. Maybe not everything, but like a lot of things. That's kind of the catch-all place. If you have questions on that, definitely talk to us later.
And like even tonight after GDC Square, Games Y'all and the Museum of Human Achievement is having their
They postponed it.
Oh, they postponed it?
It got canceled because it's freezing.
Oh shit! Well, it was supposed to be tonight, but figure out through their Discord when it's happening.
I'll tell you, hi, I'm Victor, I coach Drive UK Austin.
Yes.
Talk to me later and let me know what's up.
Yeah, so Games Y'all is like a showcase that you guys can show your games at if you just submit them. So do that. Get more people knowing who you are in Austin.
Oh, that was really good.
Whoops.
Thank you, Victor. Anyway, we're gonna stop talking so much and say thank you all for sitting here and listening to us. There's a QR code to our website and we're gonna open it up to QA. I don't really know how much time we have left.
We have like 30 minutes left.
We have 30 minutes left, so here we go. Yes, hi Grant.
Hi. Okay, I have a question, but I want you to answer it, and I think it's going to be important. What would you say is the most important thing when you're forming a team? Because I feel like that's always a major sticking point for some of these projects happening just in general, So.
As the person who basically formed the team, I started Merch Conflict. I think it's definitely like it's just how well you mesh together, like socially. Like the person, like Ethan could not know anything, but he's great at learning. So I want to work but I love working with him. And he's gonna pick stuff up, right? Versus like someone who's really good at everything and then they're like annoying to work with. I think it's just being nice and respectful. And communication really is key. Like, hey, I'm doing this thing. Hey, I'm changing the whole game, and so it's going to break everything. Like needing to know those things is a huge one.
Yeah. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, yeah. I was just going to say, I feel like to an extent, we might have lucked out a little bit in that a lot of us were friends beforehand, but also some of us weren't, right? Like, I know I pretty much well, except for Karina. So like all of us didn't know at least one person on the team pretty much before this, but we all like meshed together really well. And I think definitely this wouldn't have happened if we all didn't like working together so much. That got us through a lot of difficult nights and everything working on Refresh. So,
And if possible, try and like, as I said, work with people on other projects before you try and get to a capstone level class. Like if you can go into something like game capstone, I don't know how Professor Toprak still structures it, but if you can go in with a group you want to work with, and even better, if with an idea of something you might want to make it, you don't have to stick to that. This whole industry is scope and rescope and drop ideas and find new ideas. But if you have a common ground of something you want to work on with people you want to make it with, that will get you like 2/3 of a semester's work of figuring stuff out. Like you've already done that. That's the hardest part of like a 1 semester class.
I think another thing is make sure that you have like the same level of buy-in as your teammates. Like y'all have like the same, I guess goal maybe, but also like time that you want to put in the game, like the same effort. And that will help avoid a lot of just like fallout in the team. You might have experiences with like game jams where like one person just can't work for one day, and that kind of really hurts when you only have like 2 days to work on it. But like knowing that everybody else on the team wants to make this project succeed as much as you do is really important.
And I think to that point, like, oh, how do you figure out buy-in? That points it back to communication of like, how are you going to know if y'all don't talk to each other? And to be honest, like it can be rough, right? Some of these conversations are difficult conversations to have, but they're definitely worth having. And I would encourage everyone to like at least try talking to their other teammates, whether it's, you know, on an individual basis or in a group, however that dynamic works. It could go either way, but yeah, just knowing where everyone stands. And ideally, if y'all all are on the same page, I think that's like the way to get it done. Any other things? Yes.
Okay, so like, I know for me, like, I'm like here, I like this, I'm probably gonna be at GDC Square all day, just listening to talks. But the reality is, I kind of have like work I should be working on homework and stuff. So how do you manage like homework, networking, social life, and working on projects like all of that? How do you like?
When you find out the answer, you let us know.
The big one that drops off first, definitely like when you're grinding in school, social life, like that's the hard one to maintain, I'll say. Like homework, you want to keep your grades up. Projects, you want to finish the project. Networking, you want to set yourself up for the future. At least I feel like for me, social life was the one that dropped quickly.
I think also like planning your schedule, like, oh, if you're taking 5 like AET classes that all are project based, like you're gonna kind of screw yourself over because then you have 5 final projects you have to do. And so you are like splitting your effort between all of them versus like when we were doing senior design project, like I kind of didn't care about any other class I was in just because I needed to pass them to graduate, but they weren't like super critical project based classes. Yeah, so limit your projects.
Also, so like, what classes do you recommend? Like, since those are like CSAT.
I would highly recommend. Oh, do they do indie game studio anymore?
I don't know. I haven't checked.
Not yet.
Andrew Augustin's supposed to teach it.
Okay. Take all Andrew's classes because he's good. I don't. They change the schedule like every year, so. I mean, we came, like, I did level design with Ethan and Melody. I basically took, like, all of Tyler Coleman's classes, like game scripting,
Prototyping, I think
prototyping. And then senior design project is, like, the big one. Yeah, I don't know if y'all have anything.
If senior design projects getting phased out is the rumblings I've heard. So maybe also look at Toprak's capstone classes. Like you can make some cool projects from that.
I think something, and again, at least for AET, that schedule is always in flux. So you never quite know what you're gonna get. But something that I did was going into AET as a high schooler, I had no idea what I wanted to do in games. And so I tried everything. So I tried like a coding class, I tried level design, I did 3D art, 3D animation. I'd already had a background in 2D and knew I didn't really want to go that direction. I think the only one I didn't take is like narrative. And so I had an understanding of all those like different ones and was able to choose from there, at least on a loose basis, you know? So I think just perusing the schedule and seeing what piques your interest.
I think like piggybacking off of that, I think it's very hard to give recommendations for AET classes in particular. But at least outside of class, do lots of game jams. Like you will have a product by the end of it. You'll learn how to scope. And you can also try a lot of new skills as you're doing game jams. Like that's where I got like 95% of my game making knowledge was doing game jams. Like since my first game jam my freshman year with EGADS, like I've just done so many game jams, just like trying out new skills. Like I'll do rigging, I'll do animation, I'll do the effects and UI and shaders and all that. Like that's stuff that you just pick up just from learning. And there are classes for it, but I think doing work outside of class is like the most valuable thing you can do. Also, if you're making time to do like personal projects outside of school, like that also shows that you're passionate and you want to have a job in the industry, versus just doing projects in school. So yeah.
Yeah, I think in terms of like AET classwork, from my experience, there are a lot of classes that are kind of limiting. And so being able to, and it's also a lot of like, oh, maybe you work on one big project or a few bigger projects over the course of the semester, versus a game jam, you have like a weekend to do something and you learn a lot in that weekend. And then maybe you don't like the team you're on for one of your classes. I think like just trying to get by in the class while doing, like Karina said, like game jams and stuff. Like not everything you put out has to be perfect, but if you're putting out a bunch of stuff, then something's going to end up being good.
Game jams teach you how to make a game. The classes teach you how to work with teams through processes and pipelines and documentation. And all of that stuff's really, really important. Don't kid yourself, documentation is huge. But game jams and rapidly making something with no care for any of that stuff you learn in school is just how you learn how to use your tools. And then the classes teach you how to be a developer that will work for a company eventually.
Stay in school, definitely. We love AET class, guys. Any other questions? Yes.
Could y'all speak on the process of bringing your game to console at all?
Yo, we have this like partner that's doing most of the work for us, and we check in and be like, "Oh, you're doing some great work, buddy."
Yeah, shout out to Jay over in the UK right now. He's working some wizardry. We don't know what, but he's like making UI sprite sheets and fixing windmills that are destroying our CPU.
Optimize your game.
Yeah.
Because ours was running at 4 frames a second on Switch.
With no camera turned on, 4 FPS.
Yeah.
I think something that I just learned just from seeing them work is like some of the things that they have to look out for when building for console is like every single little thing can have an impact on your performance. And it's very hard to know what those things are, especially when you're just like fiddling around on the engine side. Like it's hard to like do that deep dive and understand what's going on. I think we were very fortunate to have them like they like wrote out an entire document of like, these are all the things that are making your game run terribly, and this is what you can do to fix them. So like having that knowledge, maybe it's not like you're not like learning these things yourself to understand what makes optimized games like what they are, but like maybe there's resources out there other than Jay.
It's very different than working on like your own like dev machine, because at least for PC releases, which is what I assume most of us are probably doing, is everyone's PC is different. Someone could be running a Chromebook, someone could be running a 4090. You never know. It's hard to spec that out. But for consoles, The Nintendo Switch is 10-year-old mobile hardware, and that's what you're stuck with. You get no more RAM, you got nothing else. So you have to get everything in spec and know how to make it be able to work in spec.
Yeah, I had a thought and I forgot, sorry. Oh man, wait,
I have something.
I go for it, yeah.
I would say something that a lot of people I think are looking towards now that's not console, but I think is a step in the right direction is like getting your game playable on like say a Steam Deck. Because it's just gonna run, you know, you just upload your build or whatever. But then that is like a good signifier because like the Steam Deck's pretty powerful. And so if it's not running good on Steam Deck, then you have some problems. But I think that's a good, yeah, like it's a good way of looking at your project and saying like, oh, how can I optimize? How does it just feel working on this? And then you can look into other options. But like porting it to consoles is pretty hard if you don't have, if you're doing it yourself.
I think something to consider is like, we did not open up the profiler like once. I like Connor.
No, we did a couple times.
I
We
did.
did a couple times.
Yeah.
So I think like
I tried.
We see you, Bobby. It's okay.
I did like
Make your
fixing
own
those
game.
like those stones that had like thousands of
That could be a
tries.
symptom of most ADHD kids, I will say that. I think CS students are a little bit more savvy on that end, and so, hey, knowing who you have on your team, those skills, that's important. But also the scope of like a student project timeline of like, you have 2 months, maybe, like high end, you have 2 months to make a game. Are you gonna, you know, do critical path features, or are you gonna fix the water shader that's bugging out, but it doesn't impact the actual gameplay? I think that's just a little bit on that.
Yeah, most of the things that made the game run terribly were art things. And it as the only artist, I will take the blame because there's no time.
There's no time, yeah.
It was also kind of my fault.
So,
It's everyone's
that
fault.
answers.
So I hear from the conflict, like there's lots of game jam, there's economics classes, sacrifice and social life. Probably not much club stuff as well. My question is like, even making a game sounds like such a huge monumental effort on top of just learning all the skills in the first place. How much is there to sacrifice if one wants to make an effort like y'all, or even just make a game in general?
How much is there to sacrifice?
I can talk briefly. So like any course or any like web class that's like, oh yeah, it's $20, I'm gonna teach you how to make a game. It's like bullshit because every game is like completely different. So there's like literally no way to teach you how to make a game. You just have to like try things. And in terms of like figuring out how much you want to sacrifice, I think the really important thing for us when we were working on Refresh was like constantly rescoping to the time that we were like allowing ourselves to dedicate to the project, instead of like having this huge scope in mind and being like, okay, I'm going to sacrifice everything to make this happen. You have to scope to your abilities instead of like the other way around, which I think is a trap that's really easy to get into of like, you have this really cool idea. And so like, you just try super hard to make it happen. But then you're like 3 years deep on a personal project and like, there's barely anything to show. So like it's easier with the team to like keep yourself accountable and realistic about what you can accomplish in the time you're allowing yourself to work on it, if that makes sense.
And, oh, go ahead.
Okay, I think to add to that, set yourself like deadlines for your personal projects. Deadlines will make sure that you actually make something. It doesn't have to be great. It doesn't have to like reach all the goals that you set out for yourself, but at least you can say you finished it in some ways, you know?
Yeah, and I know Ethan, you're in the production route, so to all the other people, I think maybe I'm biased. I'm a producer, so hey, I gotta plug production. But yeah, the work that goes into, you know, scoping your features and also the skills that you have and the time that you have in order to complete those features is
is really big.
We, as part of the indie game studio class we mentioned, we had a hard deadline. If we did not launch on Steam, we failed the class. Like that was the end all and be all. So the amount of things that are on the cutting room floor, we have this Miro board of so many things we wanted to do that we cut because if we did not launch, we failed the class. So deadlines, as Karina said, deadlines.
And it doesn't even have to be something like, oh my gosh, if I don't launch this game on Steam, I'm never making one again, because it's such a long-term goal. Something short like, hey, I want to showcase my build or showcase my game at Games Y'all. So I'm gonna give myself 2 weeks to make a prototype or something. And it can be messy and it can be broken and people can soft lock, but you'll have something that people are playing. And I think that's another thing, is that being able to actually see the thing that you're working on, because if you're doing the personal project that you've been 3 years in development and no one's able to play it, it's really hard to stay motivated. But if you see people getting interested in your game and asking you questions about the process, then it's really motivating to keep yourself going.
Yeah, last note on that is for.
That's all.
Last note there is, for the build that we have here, we set ourselves a goal and what we wanted to include in that build, and some of it we had to rescope, and some of it we were able to achieve that goal and get it done. So yeah, deadlines. Any other questions? Yes.
You guys kind of speak to problem solving ideas, or I don't know how much conflict you have with the whole idea for refresh, but for a new game or a new IP, how much is it I imagine you guys aren't all sold on a game idea, right when someone sees it. How much, or how do you guys sort of go about problem solving, and how much compromise is it between teams?
We were all, it's just it worked out. We were all in on it. Yeah, we were just all in on it from the start. We just kind of made it happen.
Yeah, it's all really easy. No. It's honestly, I think the answer is lots of long, difficult conversations, really, because if you're not familiar with refresh, the basic, one of the core mechanics is that you collect upgrades that give you more movement actions, so you get additional jumps in the air. We spent hours and hours at the beginning of the first semester, weeks really, discussing how that should work. And because as an example, because it was a solar pump game with these ideas of renewable energy, I initially proposed an idea of you can only recharge your solar cells, that's what they're called, when you're in sunlight in the game, right? Because, that sounds like an interesting thing. But then we're that after literal, again, what Will said, weeks of talking about that sort of thing, we realized that would not be conducive to the kind of game that we would want to make. And there's just lots of conversation where we came up with ideas and then act them later. And then that's really all it is, I think.
Also, another thing is get people to play early versions of it and see if the devs are cooking too much, because we cook too much. You'll think a system makes sense until someone who has no idea anything about the project gets their hands on it and they're like, what is this? And to you it makes logical sense, but to a new player, devs cook too much sometimes. So to be able to know when you're making something for the public instead of just yourself.
In the case of solar cells, Ethan was arguing for, let's recharge in the sunlight. And I said, no, you should have a station that you can go to and recharge at, because that's way easier for a player. And we argued and had meetings and went for hours.
Not in a bad way.
No, it was very I think getting good at being able to, and this is a great question that I've been asked in multiple interviews. Oh, how do you solve conflict, stuff like that. But being able to just take a step back and being we need to take a break from talking about this. But it's really funny, the way that it's solved is we just okay, let's just get solar cells working, and then they just recharge when you hit the ground. And it's oh, that's way better than anything we were arguing about. So
my last note on that is we don't have hours and hours and weeks to talk about one feature in the game. And so something as a producer that I recommend, or just anyone, time box. So set a 10-minute timer and just have a hard brainstorm sesh, and then write stuff down. Don't just say it, make sure you're writing that down, whether it's on a whiteboard, a piece of paper, Miro, like virtually just write down. And then like there's a bunch of different frameworks on like how to do brainstorming within time frames, but find something that works for you and your team. Because we don't have infinite time or money, unfortunately.
And then last thing on that, try and prototype like any ideas you have as quickly as possible, because I think, it's probably not the best decision on our part to like lock ourselves in a room for like 5 hours and talk about like, oh yeah, so like when you stop jumping, what happens when you're on the ground? It's like stupid. And like you can talk about a design for like we said, literally hours and days and weeks. But if you just like try out an implementation, we would probably pretty quickly learn like, oh wait, no, this like feels awful to do like this. So it's like you have to make constant bad decisions to know what feels bad, and eventually you'll find the one where you're like, oh, this feels good. Because I think commonly you're gonna try and like over engineer something. You'll be like, oh, like this is gonna work like this, and then it's gonna feed into this, and then you're like, it's way better if I just press a button and something happens. So try and prototype and implement and iterate as quickly as possible.
And remember, at the end of the day, you're all friends. Like, don't hold a grudge about a design decision.
Yeah.
You're all friends. You're all trying to make a game.
Yeah, go get pizza after arguing.
We shouldn't say argue, probably.
Discussing.
Did that answer your
Discussing,
question?
yeah.
Okay.
Respectfully
I
discuss.
feel the need to explain myself, because in this presentation, you revealed something that I didn't understand. Yeah, as advice goes, just make something that will sell is pretty weak tea. But I want you to understand, I wouldn't have told you that if you hadn't made Refresh, and if I hadn't played Refresh, and I realized there's something here that I want you to value your team. And I think at this point, you understand that what you have between the 6 of you, you couldn't have planned it. And even if people ask you how you did it, you can't explain it in language that anyone will get. Because it's, again, unique between the individuals within the team. You're all different people, but somehow you figured it out. And the Refresh is the first product of it, and now you got another prototype. If I didn't think you could figure out again, or at least make a good attempt at it, and do it for business sake, I wouldn't have told you that. So what I'm really trying to say is, in my Ron Swanson way, I'm really proud.
I just want to add to that. I think part of what has helped us along in this journey is that we went to GDC showcasing Refresh, and we were fully set out to make this a free game. Like, we were telling everybody who was like coming by the booth, like, wish this out on Steam, it'll launch free in like a month. And so many developers like in the industry were like, hey, you should charge money for this game. Like, y'all are students, but like you're developers. And that sort of like mindset change was like huge for us. And the fact that we got so many sales for being a paid game kind of like helped us see that like this is like an avenue to take. Also, like John's like encouragement to like continue working with each other is like huge.
Before you answer the next question, we have time for one more.
Katie?
What events does Merge Conflict have next coming up?
Yeah, wow, what a great question from our marketing director over here. Yeah, next Saturday, you guys live on campus, it's about to get swarmed with like 10,000 teenage girls for UT STEM Girl Day. So there's gonna be a bunch of STEM events. What else we got going on?
Yes. Oh,
Esports
right.
lounge.
Hey, we're going back to GDC again this year. Which, right. Also that one. The Esports Lounge, we're having, they're having like an indie, it's on my phone. It's like an indie day event. But we're gonna be showcasing that.
I think that's March
That's
1st.
And it's in the union, by the way.
Yeah,
We don't know where the esports.
Honestly, that QR
Look for the
code has a
RGB.
link
You
to
smell
like
it.
all of our social media.
Yeah, we're pitching at the student startup event for South by Southwest. We'll be at GDC. We're doing a lot of stuff. It's kind of crazy.
It is scary.
Scary.
Wait, Zico, was that a last
It's all
question? or do we
very
have time for one?
That was pretty quick.
Mine's pretty quick. I can.
Okay.
I just want to know, were there any, being poor in UW people, do you know of any great free or budget-friendly tools, or
Blender.
like Unity?
Unity, Blender, Notion. Notion is great.
Notion's not.
I mean, something that you wouldn't
It's
know.
almost-
Well, personal.
Oh,
by
sure.
existing.
For the music people out there, it's kind of free. Reaper, it's free like WinRAR is free, but it's only it's $60 for a DAW. You're not spending $1,000 like Pro Tools are able to.
I think that's good, yeah,
Yeah.
and we'll be sticking, some of us will stick around, so.
Yeah.
Thank you.